So I'm just going to talk briefly about the character of Robert Robertson, who the character was and how we went about casting him. Robert is a very shy, awkward, rather childlike character, more comfortable with gadgets and gizmos than he is with people. When we cast Robert, we initially auditioned for a man, so we put a call out for a male actor. And we auditioned hundreds of people. And then a female actress called Shamira Turner, who is a deviser as well as an actress, got in touch, asked if she could audition. And we thought, well, why not? And she was just fantastic. She just was Robert straight away. So this was quite an interesting example of cross-gender casting that we used. When I was directing Shamira, we never really used words like male and female. She didn't think about the fact that she was a boy. She thought about the character traits she was trying to put across. So being childlike, being easily manipulated, being awkward. She did some really interesting things with her voice and with her body to get that character across. So she tucked her pelvis in, she physically compacted her chest, she kept her voice in its lowest register. And what she was always trying to do was to play along that line of being truthful but also being stylised. And I think she did a really excellent job in creating this very unusual character by sticking to being truthful but also being stylised. We used body shapes and we also used certain gestures to get the character across. So she would often sort of go like this with her glasses, which was quite a nice awkward gesture. And when we costumed Robert, we gave him a very scruffy wig, and the costume shape really helped with those awkward body shapes that Shamira was trying to create. The actress playing Robert charted the shift in character through the use of her voice and her body. So when we first meet Robert, he's quite soft, quite crumbly, very awkward. He keeps his chin down. He looks up at people sort of from, up to the side. And then by the end of the show, when Robert's character has completely transformed, he is very angular, very machine-like. Shamira really worked on her eyes and her gaze, her focus, which became it was as if she wasn't really looking at anyone when she was looking at them. Her eyes became very glazed, very cold, which was a really effective way of getting the character across. The whole silhouette of the character changes as well, from very sort of soft and having an undulating walk to having a very sharp silhouette, very machine-like and very cold. Robert has some really interesting relationships with other actors on stage and other characters on stage that shift throughout the show. It's really key for an actor to know what their relationships are with other actors on stage. It's how you unlock lots of secrets to the story. So an interesting example is Robert's relationship with Joy. When he first meets Joy, she is his dream woman. She's really geeky and awkward, and he falls madly in love with her at first sight. Golem, however, convinces Robert that Joy isn't really good enough for him, that he can do better, that perhaps he needs a girlfriend that suits his new outfit, his new lifestyle, and convinces Robert that he has so many choices, why would he stick with a frumpy 35-year-old? And they're Golem's words, not mine. Another interesting relationship is between Robert and Julian in the office. Robert has always looked up to Julian. He admires him. He thinks he's hilarious. And then Golem convinces Robert to see Julian not as someone to look up to, and certainly not as a friend, but as competition. And he has a line where he says Julian is competition, not friend, but foe. I think that's quite an interesting change in Robert's character when Golem convinces him to see these people who he loves and adores and looks up to as predators, as not good enough. So the character of Robert Robertson, to the outside world, when we first meet him at the beginning of the show, he may seem really socially awkward. He may not seem very popular. He was bullied at school. He doesn't have a girlfriend, but he's really quite happy with his life. He's got friends. He's got loved ones. He's creatively quite fulfilled. And so although a lot of people in the audience might look at him and see that he's a bit lost, he's actually really quite content with everything in his life. And what Golem does, or rather the company who own Golem, they manage to convince Robert that he needs Golem in his life, that Golem has improved his life, made him more popular, made him less socially awkward, given him a number of girlfriends. And I think this is quite interesting that Robert, by the end of the show, feels that actually he is nobody without his golem.
Annie is Robert's sister. She works in the library in the daytime. By night, she fronts an anarchic rock band. Her function in the show is the voice of reason. She's the only person throughout the show who actually questions anything, questions Golem's motives and what's actually happening throughout the show. Annie is very introverted, so I wanted to show that with my physicality. So she's quite hunched over, she's not open. She's very wise and analytical as well, so she's led by her head. So she's very questioning. So she often leads with her head. She doesn't ever lead with her chest or anything like that. She's just always watching and thinking. At the beginning of the show, Robert completely looks up to Annie. Everything she says, he hangs on her every word. As the show progresses, Robert stops listening to Annie and listens to Golem 2 more. He says things like, "Annie, I'm completely in control of my life, thank you." This really shows the effect that Golem 2 has had on Robert.